like I used to, and I need another notch on my belt. If you're looking for a six-pack, muscled up kind of man, better look somewhere else.
Hey, what is up, everybody? It's bacon time. I'm Aaron Ludwig, and welcome to Dads with Bacon Talking Sports for this Wednesday, January 22nd. I had to look here on my computer screen to see what the date was again. And every day just mixes together. So we got a lot to talk about. We got some coaching moves in the NFL that I'm sure you've all heard about, but we're going to discuss them with one of our good Bear friends in the house tonight. We're also going to talk about NFL playoffs, obviously, college football playoff championship game. Kind of a snoozer, but then it kind of picked up at the end there, and talk about that. Also, Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. We're going to talk a little bit about that too. So I want to bring in
Hey, what's going on there? It's been a while. It's been a while, Bacon.
Yeah, good to have you on there. We're gonna,
yes. Ben Johnson hires. Everybody worldwide was saying Ben Johnson to the Raiders, sign it, seal it, deliver it. But guess what? Not this time, boys and girls.
We're also going to bring in Adam. Adam, how's it going, buddy?
The proper NFC North team who is better than the Bears, and you know it.
Yeah, but see the problem is they won the same amount of playoff games this year as the Bears. So I mean, really can't we can't say that.
Hey,
but
the Bears are the last
about.
undefeated team in the NFC North in 2025, and I say that with tongue in cheek and a lot of sarcasm.
All good.
So let's
fantastic. Let's go.
Let's talk, Brad, first about because you're the first Bear fan in the group, and then we got Brandon Combs who works 3 to 11 every night, so that's why he can't be on here talking also. But one of the things he was saying in the group was obviously he wanted Ben Johnson. Every Bear fan wanted Ben Johnson, but being a Bear fan like he is, he also felt like they were going to do something to screw it up. Did you share his pessimism, or were you a little more optimistic?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is that it is possible to be a fan and love your team and still be a realist and say that like it's been mismanaged and not put together well over the past 15 to 20 seasons. I mean, I think that's a very fair thing. And the thing is, like, if you are a fan, everybody should be able to have that conversation. However, it didn't happen. I think that this is one of the first in a chain of decisions that I think that a lot of people don't believe in Ryan Poles at the moment, but the long-term movement in regards to some player selections and this coaching cycle, I think, is a grand slam. I mean, how do you not get the hottest offensive mind in the game at the moment, taking a washed up Jared Goff and turning him into a superstar with a handful of, again, minded, very good role players? I think that Ben Johnson is going to demand have that command and leadership, not exactly like Dan Campbell, but again, he's been there. He's been rubbed off on that type of leadership, that type of leader of men, that type of demanding of excellence is needed in Chicago. And it's going to be, I think, the beginning of not something necessarily immediate, but I think that you will definitely see a turnaround in this franchise as to what types of players are going to be interested in coming there, what types of players are going to want to resign, because over the past 10 to 15 years, any decent players we've had have decided to leave Chicago and then go sign and play somewhere else, i.e. Roquan Smith, David Montgomery. I mean, we could go on with a few more defensive examples. So ultimately, I think this is the first time in a long time the Bears got the decision right. I think he is the man for the job. I think he will do. And the great thing is that he doesn't need to go and hire a whole bunch of young coaches, because there are some really, really, really good coordinator type coaches that were former head coaches that are out of this hiring cycle for the past 2 years that I think are going to be sliding in with them. Dennis Allen, former head coach. He's, again, a solid defensive coordinator type coach that just not a really good head coach. Let him command that defense.
Mhm.
Who's that line coach, Adam, from the Lions, that is going to slide over with Ben Johnson?
Pharrell Williams, I believe, is who the Lions just took the Patriots poached from the Lions.
No, there's a coach that is on the offensive side. I don't know if he's a QB coach or a line coach.
I have no idea
for the Lions, but basically he and Ben Johnson have kind of like been hand in hand throughout their whole careers, and he's looking to bring him from Detroit to Chicago on his staff. Yeah. So I think there's a lot. In addition, let's look at the statistical and strategical advantages of having a former coach within the division on another team. All that information that you bring into this franchise is worth it because you play 2 games versus them every year. So again, a lot of positive things. I'm not about to go and say the Bears are going to be like 12-5 next year. Not about to go say that. I think there will be a definite improvement. I think you'll see a lot of progress in Caleb Williams in that offense, and I really look forward to see what that looks like.
That's exactly what I wanted to bring up, Aaron. If that's okay.
Go ahead, Adam. Go ahead.
Ben Johnson, to me, is a no nonsense type of coach. If Caleb Williams has an attitude, how long before Ben Johnson goes up one side of him and down the other? Or kicks him out of Chicago and goes after an Arch Manning, Dylan Gabriel, whoever these quarterbacks are coming out next year. Ben Johnson can play with that. Dennis Allen, if that's the play, I saw that and went home run. Makes a ridiculous amount of sense. When he was the DC, not head coach, the DC for the Saints, one of the best defenses, top 10, top 15, year in, year out in football. You take now that mind added to this young Bears defense. It's a home run pick. Soon as I saw it. I'm still not a fan of Caleb Williams. I think he's got a freaking ego. I think that ever since I heard that he wanted an ownership stake in the company, I don't want to hear that crap. And when I was scouting, then I can only watch film. I'm not in these interviews. I'm not actually seeing what their personalities is. I can only go by what I've seen in interviews, published, or, media, whatever. Daniels was the clear one. Everyone knows it. I'll take my W on that. But Williams concerned me on attitude. He concerned me on playing way too much hero ball. And I don't know what the Bears are doing still keeping Ryan Poles around. I don't get it.
Yeah, I was going to ask. That was one of the things I wanted to ask Brad is, one of the things that we all heard, I think, regarding Ben Johnson before they started or before he had interviews and things like that. And I'm sure his agent was talking to teams and everything even before that. But, one of the things that people had said was the Raiders were the front runner because all the things that Johnson wanted in terms of the control and he wanted to kind of run his show and set it up his way, and including the GM, it sounded like the Raiders were the front runner to kind of give him all that. And I think I heard a lot of Bears fans. I think that's where a lot of the pessimism came in. It felt like was that the McCaskies would never give him any of that stuff. So my question is, and one of the reasons why I guess I was a little surprised that it happened so quick was that, it doesn't sound like they're getting rid of Poles. It doesn't, so did the McCaskies just give or whoever he interviewed with, whoever he spoke to, either just gave an amazing sell job, or maybe were all those demands that we had heard
Well, I think
BS. Were they BS?
No, I think that in the life of an NFL GM, generally you're given more time than a head coach.
Yeah,
sure. Generally you're getting a chance to go through at least 2 hiring. Again, in most franchises, unless they're like the Jets or something like that. But generally the GM gets a longer lifespan. I also think that, we are still in the windfall of the Bryce Young trade. We're still gaining picks in this upcoming draft from that singular transaction.
Yeah, but it's what, a fourth?
No, it's a second round pick.
Okay, I was going to say,
which is at the top of the second round, which is going to be a top 35 pick. That's a
Zaraku, that's the tackle from West Virginia. A lot of these other edge rushers, defensive linemen that at least I've seen right now on PFF Smart Draft Tracker. You get that top 5-10 range. There's a lot of good talent in that top 10 that you can go ahead and grab.
And I also think that, defensively that the Bears are good, but they're also thin. So they kind of like late in the season when injuries started kind of piling up, they really didn't have like the next man up and ready to go. And a lot of people just I think they just choose to ignore it, is that Ryan Poles we're talking old Mother Hubbard's bare ass cupboard of a roster when he took that franchise over. So it's not that was not a roster. And I vividly remember this season that when you're 3-13 and you lose like 12 games in a row to end the season, it's those kinds of teams are historically bad teams. Yeah. People don't put the Bears in that category because they're like, oh yeah, they're sucking for it. Yeah, but they were also fucking terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you just don't flip franchises like that when they're that bad, aka the Cleveland Browns, or for a long time the Buffalo Bills. They were perennially just not good for a while, and until they were able to really get a core change within their franchise to take place. And I think that you got to give that time. You got to give that time to marinate and mature, and you just can't have a microwave mind like a lot of people want to have in the NFL.
Well, let me ask you this. This kind of ties in. Sorry, Aaron. This kind of ties into the Vrabel hire, which I'm sure we'll get into. I still don't think Elliott Wolf is going to be the GM. I think Vrabel is going to look for a suitable replacement and overhaul that front office. I think it's coming. It's going to take time. And you know what? We've got plenty of it before we need to get into truly the combine and scouting prospects. We have time. We have time before free agency. I think Wolf is gone. What do you think, Ben Johnson, if he really wanted the control, heck, a hell of a lot more control than Vrabel wanted? Vrabel wasn't even talking about control. Pat's brought Vrabel in for a culture. He was one of their guys. What do you think, on a scale of 1 to 10, the chances is that Ben Johnson goes to the McCaskies and go, I want Poles out, I have a guy?
I don't know. I think that's a real kind of like outlier of a possibility of even happening. But it's the same time that I think that if you get to a point where let's say you're beginning to have some success and you're starting to see some wins, even like maybe sniffing a wild card or the playoffs, that they over like a couple of year period, maybe, but I don't see him after this year just going and saying, hey, it's like he ain't getting me players, get somebody. I don't think that's gonna be the way it works.
I think it's a 4. I think it's a 4. The problem that I see with Ben Johnson, and clearly when he came here to New England, he knew exactly where he wanted to go already. I think he already had pretty much decided, I'm going to Chicago. He just wanted the Lions season to be over before he made the decision. I rated it at a 4 for replacing the GM. But with Ben Johnson, he's in that Lions organization with Campbell and their GM, Holmes, like this in lockstep in every single draft. They came in together. Does Ben Johnson want his Holmes? Do they want to come in together and do something? Or does Johnson go, this is a weak draft coming up. Let me get with the team. Let me see what I have here for a year. Then we can figure out if we want a new GM next year. Because let's face it, everything I've heard with this draft, it's not good. It's weak in wide receivers. It's weak in quarterback. It's not the greatest cornerback class. Safeties, you can argue. It's a great running back class. Not a good tackle class. and a good defensive line and edge class. So what does Ben Johnson do with that? Because you need offense, you need on both sides of the trenches for the Bears.
Agreed. And that's I think that's where the focus on this draft and free agency is going to be, is that I mean, we've been really struggling to replace a decent center ever since Olin Kreutz in the early 2010s. Ever since then,
we've been in the same boat with a center. David Andrews, 31, and missed the entire year.
Yeah,
so I'm right there with you. We need a center.
It's tough. So yeah, I think center and a center left guard would really help. I think Tevin Jenkins maybe testing free agency from what the beat writers are kind of talking about. And also defensive line. They've got decent players on D, but they were a lot of them were injured this year, and their lack of depth showed. So I think yes, definitely in the trenches is where the Bears go this year. That's where they attack free agency. And I think that I think those have to be the priority, man. You got to keep, again, if you're going to develop a quarterback, you got to be able to keep him on his feet and not get shellacked 65 times in a season.
Yeah, that's it.
Even though that's not all, again, that's part. I'd say it's a 50-50 shot of like half of his fault and half of the line. I think that's a fair assessment of, you know, a lot of times he's holding on to the ball too long, and so it is.
Aaron's about to slap us with the off-topic Packer references here. Aaron, you can put number 1 in here. As much as I don't like Brian Gutekunst, he's at least drafted really, really well. You may not know what a first-round wide receiver is, but he's at least drafted decently.
Yeah, and you know, when you look at the last few years with Ted Thompson, I'm extremely happy with Gutekunst. But I want to ask Brad one more question as a Bears fan, and then we'll move on here too, because you mentioned something earlier, Brad, that you said, you know, you see with this hire, kind of you didn't really say turnaround, but that I think that's what you were kind of getting to, that the team's going to turn this thing around and you're going to start getting better. My question to you is, how long? Because I feel like you're more of a patient fan maybe than most of the fan bases are around, you know, how long do you give? Because we're already hearing Bear fans, again, not necessarily you or Combs, but we're already hearing Bear fans talk about how you guys have the best coach in the NFC North, and all the guy's never even been a head coach before, but he's already been anointed the best coach in the NFC North. What if that best coach in the NFC North goes 6-11 in his first year as head coach? Show us some improvement, but again, it's 6-11. Are Bear fans gonna already be turning, or do you feel like, hey, we'll give him 3 years? He's got 3 years to kind of turn this around. What is it?
Again, it's hard to say because I mean, it's, you know, ultimately, as the adage says, that league is about wins and losses at the end of the day. So, you know, if he goes 6-11, I mean, you better have one hell of a follow-up season after that, because you won't have a job if you're anything like that again 2 years in a row. It's crazy to think like how many franchises, again, they are just willing to get off coaches so fast. And I think a lot of times it's kind of, you know, sometimes it's needed, but sometimes it's detrimental to where it can set your franchise back when you're starting to develop relationships, getting systems installed, etc.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's just, you know, that's the funny thing about, like, one of the things that definitely does not help his prospects in terms of having time to turn it around is when you see a team like the Commanders, you know, who were
correct
garbage last year. And I mean, they had some bright areas, but I mean, it weren't even close to making the playoffs. And all of a sudden this year they're in the NFC Championship game. And now it gives every fan base who sucked this year a reason to say, well, wait a minute, why can't we do that? We just got a new coach. We just got a new GM. Why can't we be the Commanders of this year? You know, and it's the same thing like college football. I mean, exact same way. You know, you have a team like, and I'm not going to do a Packer reference here, Adam. I'm going to do a Wisconsin Badger reference here. Just but you
Off
got you got
Wisconsin
Fickle.
Badger
Yes,
reference.
there you go. There we could say off topic Wisconsin sports reference. Maybe that's what we should change.
There you go.
But like it's with Fickle. I mean, he came in, and most people said, okay, we'll give him 3 to 5 years. Well, it wasn't even 2 years, and people were already saying, get him the hell out, get him the hell out. So, because they see with the NIL and with the transfer portal, they see these teams making huge strides from one year to the next, or getting completely crushed from one year to the next. And it's like, well, we can do that too. And yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, I think it is. Just a lot of people just lack patience, and it's I think ultimately that people who post a lot of those things or have those kinds of discussions are a lot of times their ideas and stuff are off base, and so you just gotta take it for what it is and just find the sources that you rely on that are a little more reliable.
For sure. All right, so let's look at a couple other other moves that happened real quick here. We have Aaron Glenn today being signed with the Jets, and then of course Vrabel. I'm not sure if he was already the head coach when we had our show last week. Did we not?
I forget.
I remember if we talked about
he was named the head coach like a week or two ago.
Okay. Well, Adam, what are your thoughts on Vrabel? Why don't we just recap that real quick? And
the more I think about it, it was the right hire over Ben Johnson, even though I still think Ben Johnson has the way higher upside. Just in terms of the offense and being able to adapt this. Vrabel now bringing in Terrell Williams, defensive line coach for the Lions, as defensive coordinator. They keep their special teams coach. I don't think our special teams are horrible. I think that's a fine play. Wolf, I think, eventually is going to be gone. If not this year, it's next year. Vrabel's coming in to impose a culture, but you're bringing in the biggest question mark, Josh McDaniels. I feel fantastic about the defensive coordinator. McDaniels worries me. He really, really does. Is he out of touch with the current NFL? That's an interesting thing to me. So, but that's pretty much my thoughts on. I think Vrabel's fine. This team still has a year to 2 more to rebuild. Would have been a 1-year rebuild had we been able to keep the number 1 pick and then just mortgage it to the Raiders, but that's besides the point. I've done plenty of mock drafts where there's a world in which one of those 2 top quarterbacks is still there at 4. And if that's the case,
you're wanting the Patriots to take a quarterback?
No, I want us, if we were in the first overall pick, say, yard sale. Who wants it? We don't want it. We want the pick. We don't.
Yeah, I think y'all screwed up by winning that game late.
Why
in
do
the
you
season.
think Mayo was fired an hour after the game?
Right.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, but and that sucks because that's a lose-lose situation. You can't go out there and tell your players not to play hard and give their best, and then
there's a legitimate chance Travis Hunter is available at 4. There's a legitimate chance.
I would agree with that.
It depends what Cleveland wants to do it too. Cam Ward's going 1, Shador's going 3. It's either Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter we're going 2. Most likely it's going to be Travis Hunter. Cleveland would be stupid not to take him at 2. But if they want to go pure edges, you have Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter on both sides.
Jesus Christ.
Good luck to any defense stopping that. Or excuse me, any offensive line stopping those 2. So again, it's going to be really interesting to see what Cleveland does it too. I'm either taking Travis Hunter now at 4. If one of the quarterbacks is there, I'd still be calling the Raiders going, Shador's here. You want him? And I'm moving back. There's a world where I just move back from 4 and I trade back again because I need tackles and I need picks. I'm looking for future picks. This wasn't the draft to screw up. We needed that number 1 pick to secure a faster rebuild. But I think Vrabel's the right coach for now. To me, the jury's out. And Aaron Glenn, home run grand slam pick for the Jets. I think that both Ben Johnson is an offensive genius, and I think Aaron Glenn is going to be a home run head coach. I really do.
Okay, so let's look at, and Steve, I'll ask you this, or we'll go around.
He still has Mike Tomlin. Why are we asking him?
That's right. Who tells people to go shove it?
This is the Brad and Adam therapy session. We just got new head coaches. Steve, go take Tomlin and go do something.
Who tells reporters to go shove it when people ask if he had any like interest in being traded or getting out of Pittsburgh? Basically, that's what he told everybody at his end of season press conference. Basically, go shove it.
So we have 4 teams that are left here, with still looking for head coaches. We got Dallas, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, and the Saints. What are your thoughts, Steve, on who some of those teams go after for head coaches?
Whew, man, well, this is where you've got, and I'll be frank and honest, Aaron, I've not really been watching the coaching carousel as much as I normally do because of how PO'd I am that Tomlin has basically told everybody that you're stuck with me until, because come on, the Roonies haven't said the Roonies have not come out and said a word.
I will trade you Mike Vrabel for Mike Tomlin.
We will all trust me. Most fans in Pittsburgh want to trade him away, but. I'm intrigued because we've got a situation here where as teams are losing, here come the coaching candidates that are going to start to appear. But the Cowboys are the ones that I've been looking at the most, and it's weird because once again, here comes Jerry taking his time, and bye-bye Ben Johnson. Bye Aaron Glenn. They both got scooped up, and they were both seriously interesting. Now, the one name I have seen is Cliff Kingsbury coming into Dallas, which could be interesting, but
or Dak. I mean, did I say that?
I mean, the 3 front runners that I've seen in Dallas last time I looked, because that's really honestly the only one I followed, is Kingsbury, Kellen Moore, and Brian Schottenheimer. And I think that here's the thing.
Where did Schottenheimer come from?
I don't know, but there is more and more articles I'm seeing from Dallas over the last day or two. It was Kellen Moore was there, and then Schottenheimer's name showed up. Then Cliff Kingsbury's name showed up. But once again, as these teams are holding, that means that someone in the last 4 teams has their coach. And in that mind, I think for Dallas, that's Kellen Moore. I think Kellen Moore is going to end up in Dallas once this is all said and done. Because at this point, Jerry got rid of McCarthy just to make a statement, but now Jerry is pumping the brakes and not just finding a coach and saying, I need to have somebody,
any team besides Dallas right now that's not like trying to hunt Mike McCarthy down, I think they're kind of foolish because I think he would be great with the Raiders. I think he'd be great with the Jaguars. I mean, anywhere is an upgrade with Mike McCarthy, 100%.
Yeah. Well, and that's what's
big Mike McCarthy with a 10-foot pole by any team, but that's just me. I don't think he's that.
I think McCarthy's coming as a coordinator for one of the new head coaches. I think that's what you're going to see happen with McCarthy. He's a good. I mean, he should be an HC, but I think they're trying to give some younger folks a chance, as evidenced by Johnson's hire. But I think McCarthy is too good of a football mind to not be coaching on a team next year. I mean, he could still end up in TV like these guys do if they don't get a coaching job and then show up again.
No way. There's a zero chance.
I don't see him doing TV.
Zero chance. I'm sorry. He's a career 60+% winning head coach. And that is in the NFL. That is not a flop. That is not a chance. That's when you've won 100, almost 180 games as a head coach, and you're winning at 60%. You're doing your job very well.
Yeah, but it's just surprising. 4 teams left. Everybody's sitting and seeing the teams that drop before they make their final decisions. So I think but it's a problem. I think if McCarthy was going to be hired, he would have already gotten his position. But the fact that
I think New Orleans would be a good fit for him.
I do too. Any of them, I think, would be a good fit. A chance for just a different look for any of these teams. But sorry that I don't have more on the other teams, Aaron. But Dallas is kind of the one where I focused my thoughts. But no,
well,
I think Kellen Moore.
I think Dallas is where everybody's looking right now because obviously it's Dallas, so that's what everybody cares about.
Yeah.
This one article I'm kind of looking through though as we're all talking. It was kind of interesting because none of this, the writer lists each team and then talks about the leading candidates for each one. What I'm surprised at is none of them have Brian Flores as a possible candidate, and I know people were talking about him alongside Aaron Glenn as two possible candidates for the Jets job, and then that went to Aaron Glenn, but any thoughts, and then we'll move on here because we talked about coaches long enough. But any thoughts on Brian Flores and if he could end up at any of those 4 teams?
I think that's a no. I'm not sure. I mean, again, he's proven to be a great coordinator, but at the same time, I mean, that first go around as a head coach was kind of weird. So I think just my overall vibes are no. I don't think he'll be a head coach, at least not for a little bit.
Flores is an interesting one. I can see the Raiders, but I think for Flores, I think it's a stay with the Vikings and show it for one more year.
Yep.
Then he becomes one of the top head coaching candidates next year. And then in the head coaching cycle, I think it's Kellen Moore in Dallas. I think the Saints already have their head coach in Kubiak, the young one, the one that's the offensive coordinator. I think that's easy. I still think he's young, but I think he can do it. And I think running the whole thing and not having Dennis Allen there would make a lot of sense. The Raiders is the only spot I can see Flores in, and that's purely because of Brady. I did think that Flores was treated very unfairly in Miami. Jacksonville's a weird one. I don't know. I feel like for Jacksonville, I'd want an offensive mind more than a defensive mind. Just bringing a really good defensive coordinator like a Brian Flores. But who's left for offense? Not named Mike McCarthy.
Yeah. This one, the article talks about Bucs offensive coordinator Liam Cohen.
No, he's already said he's staying with the Bucs.
Yep. Has he? Okay. All right. So this guy, and I think our Ben has already mentioned that he thinks Robert Saleh is going to be the next head coach for Jacksonville. And actually,
Saleh's the other one I couldn't think of. Okay,
yep. They're saying Saleh and Patrick Graham are the 2 finalists down in Jacksonville.
I think it's Saleh or Kingsbury. Because with that offense, Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk when he gets back.
And I think a lot of people aren't talking about is Todd Monken out of Baltimore. He's had Lamar. Don't get me wrong. I mean, they've seen what he's done, but that's been a name that's been.
Wide receivers. He has Flowers that was off and on injured this year. Like if Monken, if they beat the Bills, Monken's more of an interesting name.
All right.
I don't know. I think he's a dark horse. I could maybe see him with the Raiders too. The Raiders are pretty much just, can we bring anybody in?
Jeez.
Well, I will say this, and then we'll move on. Just going back real quick to the Cowboys. This article, and I'm reading from a story by Vincent Leonardi from it's Stadium Rant is what the article is from, just to give this guy a little bit of credit here. He mentions that the Cowboys are also looking at Marcus Freeman. That I hadn't even heard that. As well as
he's already been on record of saying that he's not going to the NFL.
Right now.
If I were him, I wouldn't either. But I just found that interesting because that's the first time I had heard. We've spent so much time hearing about Dion and and
That's
the
gained
Cowboys.
more traction, actually. You know, that there's been some meetings and stuff going on between them, and
with Dallas.
yeah.
If I were him, I'd stay
Let
back.
me see. I'm gonna go to my dynasty rosters. Do I have any Dallas players? Time for me to trade them. Oh, good. I have no Dallas players on this fantasy roster. Yeah, no.
All right.
Dion, stay in college improvement. We had our Dion discussion last week.
That's
If you're interested in that discussion, go back to last week's episode. We went in depth on what we think about Dion and how we think he can get to that head coaching spot. Stay in college for another year.
Yeah, I think stay in college for a while if I were him. But all right, so let's talk real quick about last week's NFL games, and then we'll do our predictions for this coming championship weekend. Yeah, yes we do, Adam, and we're going to start with the team right behind you there. Let's
of course you would
right to that game. Yeah, just
Thanks,
so what
Ben.
happened?
I mean,
what happened to your Lions? What happened? Come on,
I'm a Patriots fan, but I'm a Dan Campbell fan. Hence the Lions logo. I still take credit for saying Jaden Daniels was the best quarterback in this class, and it wasn't close. You're welcome. I will continue to take my victory laps on that. But that was a statement game by Jaden Daniels. He's not playing like a rookie. He played like he owned the entire game, which he did. He played well above where any rookie quarterback should be. He's in the NFC Championship, the first NFC Championship that the Commanders have been to in over 30 years. And he's doing it with a faux wide receiver one.
Faux. Terry McLaurin is not faux. Oh my gosh.
Wide receiver one.
What?
Not a top 5 wide receiver. I'll give him maybe top 10. I said it. When you have the stench of 4 years of not doing anything and doing no impact, and by the way, the only impact Terry McLaurin had in that game was a phenomenal downfield catch. Had 4 catches in that game.
So CeeDee Lamb sucks because the
CeeDee Lamb is far superior to Terry McLaurin. I could have 3 Terry McLaurins, and I'd rather 1 CeeDee Lamb. I used to be a Terry McLaurin fan. I still am. I just don't think he's elite.
Brad is speechless.
Dude, he's
an elite wide receiver creates opportunity. He only created 1 opportunity against a terrible Lions secondary. It took Zach Ertz, it took Zacchaeus, and whatever other doldrum wide receiver they had to bend out, and what's left of Austin Eckler.
Touche. But
Austin Eckler's only 28, by the way. He's not that old.
I know. But no, man, give Terry McLaurin some street cred.
I just did. I said he had a phenomenal catch downfield. That's all he did.
So 13 TDs this year.
Like I said, faux wide receiver one. But besides the point, Jaden Daniels' statement game. The offense.
Agreed.
Brian Robinson.
He was so good.
Against an elite run defense. Statement. Ertz is apparently not old enough yet. The man can still go. And how about Mikey Sanders still? Holy moly. What an interception.
Yep.
Well, yeah, that was I mean, he had two, nice interceptions for sure. Brad, what were your thoughts? Let me ask you this, Brad, since you and I are the 2 NFC North fans here.
I thought it was disappointing for Detroit. To be honest, and honestly, I'd never minded seeing Detroit be successful. Because that's, again, I know what it's like as a Bears fan, where you're going through a long phase of just sucking, and so I was rooting for them, but they deserved to lose that game. Jared Goff was a little too gung ho, a little too much Brett Favre in him that night. And that's not normally like Jared Goff. Jared Goff is normally a very efficient passer with a low turnover ratio. So yeah, it was surprising. And but I also think that, man, that Washington defense, they were getting pressure up the middle all night long. I mean, Goff had almost no time. So
one of the best offensive lines in football. You make a great point.
Yeah,
they got a lot of pressure on Goff.
Yeah, you're right. And that's the calling card of the Detroit Lions is their offensive line, because they can give Jared Goff time, and Dave Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs have been running all over everybody because of that offensive line.
Yep.
So it was interesting to see that happen. So yeah, it was. But go Commanders! I just don't want to see anything Philly KC related to anything in the Super Bowl this year.
Don't worry about it. The Bills will take care of KC. We'll get.
I know. I hope. I pray.
Steve, what were your thoughts on that game?
I mean, Commanders. I mean, Jaden Daniels is my goodness. Like, I take it back to the Hail Mary game. That was like the start of like everything that just. And then it's just
sorry, Brad.
I was just when you said the Hail Mary game. I go.
Sorry, I have my Jahmyr Gibbs stats up on now I see you, Brad. I saw you. But no,
Jahmyr Gibbs stats elite. End of story.
My goodness. I mean, if you don't have this guy top of your fantasy chart for 2025, I don't know. I mean, in a losing performance, 14 carries for 105, 7.5 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, and a long of 33 yards. He had 6 receptions for 70 yards with a long of 23. Holy cow.
He's
like
elite.
that is big numbers for the guy who was not the big. I mean, when Montgomery got hurt, he picked up the load, but he's 22 years old. Yeah. He is going to be, if he continues on this trajectory. Unfortunately, Brad, Aaron, I'm really sorry, but he's going to be giving you guys in the NFC North a lot of problems.
Oh yeah,
for the long term if he stays with Detroit.
You had to mention the Hail Mary. Look at what Brad's name is now.
Hail Mary killer season. But no, I mean, when a team puts something like that up and it works, it gives you momentum. And I think Dan Quinn has just been playing with a mentality of, let's just see where we can go. Let's just see what we can do.
He's been playing with house money.
He's talked about the doubters. I mean, he talked about them again after the Detroit game. You know, folks are like, yeah, you're not number 1 seed, you're a 6th seed. I mean, you should have no business being anywhere near the NFC Championship game. Well, guess what? They're going to be playing Philadelphia, and they have a very strong chance of winning.
I agree.
I don't think Philadelphia, not to get ahead of, looking ahead, but this is not. Philadelphia wanted Detroit, to be honest, because I think they could have beaten Detroit. I think Washington is going to give them a lot of fits. And I think coming off of a performance like they put up against one of the elite teams throughout the season, even though they were riddled with the injury bug, I mean, 16 guys on IR, and they still put up a respectable performance in the NFC.
They put up 30! They still put up 30 and lost!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and this was, I think,
but they put up like 45.
45. Yeah. I mean, everyone kept talking about how eventually these injuries were going to come and bite you, and you still weren't seeing it throughout the regular. I mean, they held Minnesota to 9 points at that last game of the season in a game that was for all the marbles. So I mean, it wasn't like Minnesota was going in that game just kind of taking it easy because we don't really need the win or we're already in the playoffs kind of thing. I mean, that was for home field, whoever won it, and they held them to 9 points.
That was 1 versus 5. It was a massive gap.
Well, yeah, exactly. So I mean, it wasn't like I mean, sometimes those end of the season games, you look at it and go, well, both teams are in the playoffs. They don't really have anything to play for or any of that kind of crap. I mean, they held Minnesota to 9 points. How many times did Minnesota in that game were they in the red zone and they got held to field goals? Yep. And you have you have a hot quarterback in Sam Brandt. I mean, he didn't do that well the game before, but still he had a great season. You have the number one receiver in the NFL in Justin Jefferson, and the Detroit Lions just with that injury riddled defense just bitch slapped you. And unfortunately, it was the divisional round that finally caught up to them, and you ran into a buzzsaw in Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, who put up 45. I mean, what I find interesting, hold on, Am, what I find interesting is that you still have people right now who look at it and go, and I think, was it Troy after that game? Or someone in our chat group, I think it might have been Troy, had said he still couldn't pick the Commanders over the Eagles, and whatever. I mean, that's anyone's opinion. The Eagles are a good team, but we've talked before about momentum and about and I hate to bring up the Packers again, but I also bring up Steve Steelers. I believe the Steelers were the first team in playoff history to be a 6th seed and win the Super Bowl with Jerome Bettis, if I'm not mistaken. So
Correct.
It's not like this is a 16 seed beating a 1 seed in the first round of the NCAA basketball tournament. I mean, this has happened plenty of times, including my Packers, Steve's Steelers, and I'm sure there have been other teams there that have done it. So it's all about who's hot. And to me, I think the Giants did it. So, it's all about who's hot. And right now, I mean, there were moments in that game that I thought to myself, you know what? It's not over. I'm not gonna, there's not gonna be the dagger, as Wayne Larrabee loves to say for the Packers, because it's the Detroit Lions. But then at one point I was like, this might be over because they can't stop. I mean, as much as they could score, a touchdown, they couldn't stop Washington at all. I mean, it was just like you could have a great drive where Goff, drives them 80 yards down the field in 4 plays and they score a touchdown quick, but your defense can't stop anything. So once you went up by 14 points, the Commanders, it was like, you needed that as a Lions fan. You're thinking, okay, we score here, we stop them. Yeah, but you haven't stopped them all night. I mean, that's the crazy part. So
that's what I was thinking watching the game.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so why don't we talk? And I got to run up real quick and get my wife a charger for the phone. But I'm going to start off about the other, to me, what was probably the other biggest game of the weekend, which was, and I know we're kind of jumping around here from Saturday to Sunday, but
he's talking about Buffalo, Baltimore.
Buffalo, Baltimore. So,
yes,
Brad, why don't you start out with your thoughts on that game? I'll be right back. You guys just keep talking. So,
well, I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'll throw this question out to you guys. Who do you think had the better game, Josh or Lamar? Steve?
You're going to throw that loaded question out to me because, I mean, the look for me, Brad, was that look at the end when they focused on Lamar sitting on the bench. There was some sort of regret sitting in that head that I could have done just a little more and maybe this game would have been ours. They both played their what's off. Lamar Josh had a good game. Lamar there's something about him. The way he just puts that ball in, like, you hear Nance and Romo, you can be sitting on the other side of the room, not even watching the TV. And the way that they just describe that, the way that Lamar throws that ball and hit the smarts that he has. And that's the difference. Josh is a good quarterback, steady quarterback. Lamar's on the up. He's on the climb. He is going to be giving the NFL and my division a lot of problems coming forward. I think there's going to be, and that's the thing too, is they know when to use Henry, because they'd hand him the ball and he would go, but then they'd find those receivers and they would just, except for Andrews, who unfortunately has a problem with catching those balls by the goal line in tough situations because it's not his first drop of a 2-point conversion. I saw a video. He has, I think, 3 of them that were, I think 2 were game winners and maybe the third one. But Lamar, I thought, played the better game. Buffalo played the better team game, and that's why they're going on.
I disagree. And just to tie into Aaron's point about the Lions, Injuries caught up to the Lions. Look what happened to the Eagles last year. They were in the position the Lions are in. Best offense. They couldn't be stopped. The defensive injuries caught up to them. I said it last week on this show. Josh Allen was going to take the entire team on his back, do what Mahomes did in the Super Bowl. That's exactly what Josh Allen did. He took the entire team on his back and brought them to the AFC Championship game. That defense, got to give the Bears defense credit where credit's due. But no, I disagree with you on Henry. You want to know why? Because the Bills, next to the Commanders, have the two worst rush defenses left in the playoffs. Henry should have rushed for over 100+ yards with ease. They did not force feed Henry the ball enough. They had plenty of design runs for Lamar. That man can run over people. Give him the ball. Henry did not get the ball enough. As someone who took the over 101 rushing yards on Derrick Henry, didn't get over there.
No.
But still, Henry wasn't force-fed the ball. Lions did not get Montgomery involved enough. The Commanders got Brian Robinson involved more than they should have, got Austin Eckler involved more than they should have, and they crushed the Lions. So I think this is a case of, sorry, you also need to understand the pure stats of the game, head coaches. Stats matter. Ratings matter. Derrick Henry should have run through that Bills defense. Could have been a completely different. It was phenomenal to watch. I felt bad for Lamar with he had 3 picks, but he played a phenomenal game.
Lamar, he went like 250. He had 2 tutties, an interception, and a lost fumble.
254.
Yeah. And
Goff had the 3 interceptions. That's right.
Yeah, Goff had the 3 picks.
Lamar had a phenomenal game.
Yeah, I agree. When it counted, that in clutch time, in clutch time, he threw that touchdown to get them ahead for a little bit. So I mean, it's that was a clutch drive, but that again, their defense just couldn't do anything to stop the efficiency of the Bills when they needed to be efficient, and that's what mattered in the end. So
there are 2 clutch quarterbacks who are 2 of the 3 best quarterbacks in the NFL.
Yeah,
it's not close. It's Mahomes, Allen, Lamar in some order. They are the 3 best quarterbacks. It is not close. No one else can touch them. They are by far the 3 best real-life NFL quarterbacks. Don't give me this shit about Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow cannot freaking do what those 3 can do.
I think Joe. Okay, when it comes to mobility, I agree, but I also think that Joe Burrow could make more throws than those guys could make.
Do you think Jaden's heading for that group?
Jaden is heading for that group. So here's the thing: the top 3 do have the mobility, but Burrow is the Brady, Rodgers, Breeze type of quarterback. He's a true pocket passer. He can run when he needs to.
Yeah.
But he's not as changed the dynamic of a game like those 3 can. Yep. The Bills and Ravens game did not disappoint in the least. It proved to be the best game of the weekend from a pure football standpoint. Yes, the Lions and Commanders had a higher offense, but you could, when you were watching it, just the gravity of that game in the snow, both quarterbacks making the plays when they needed to the most. And with all due respect to Mark Andrews, stop giving him shit. He's had an off year. Yep. Leave him the heck alone. Your team is not going anywhere. You could immediately be right back as one of the top 4 Super Bowl contenders next year. Stop bitching. There are those of us who have gone from 6 Super Bowls and 9 Super Bowl appearances who were saying that. Put it in some perspective. You have the right quarterback. You have the right running back. You've got a good offensive line. You've got a great DV. You got a good defense. You get some corners. You get Flowers back, and you actually get an elite wide receiver on the outside, not named Rashad Bateman, who's a great 3, maybe 2, who finally came on at the end of the year. that team is going to be unstoppable.
And you have coaches who back up and support and coach that team well.
John Harbaugh is one of the 10 best coaches in the NFL right now. Could go down as one of the 10 best coaches of all time.
Yeah.
That man is not given enough respect. Aaron.
Hey, sorry.
Welcome back from Buffalo Bill Stadium. Thank you for shoveling off some snow.
All right, so we've kind of discussed both conferences. I think it's time to maybe make some picks as to who we think we're going to be making to the big game.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we got. Let me bring up the lines here. Let me get all this crap off here. Okay,
I got it, Aaron.
So,
if you want it,
you got it. Okay,
I got it.
I have it too here. So,
all
right. So the first game is the 3 p.m. Eastern, Commanders at the Eagles, and I don't have the over under, but I do have the Commanders. I believe are 6-point underdogs.
Correct.
Is that
and it's
correct?
a 47.5 to over under. Both
47.
games are 47
Okay.
and a half over unders.
Okay, Steve, why don't we start with you? What are your thoughts on this game, and who are you picking?
This is the old reliable Jalen Hurts versus the young and up and coming Jaden Daniels. They've played. I mean, this is one of those times when you're like, just like the Steelers and the Ravens, like, give it to me again. Like, I want to see now the playoffs. I want to see how these teams look against each other. They put up 2 great meetings in the regular season. The Commanders are going to win. I mean, honestly, the Eagles, I don't know. There's something, I'm not feeling it. I mean, the fact that I didn't see everything I thought I should have seen in the Eagles last week. I came in late, and I just think, as I said, once again, house money.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like we're watching the Ohio State Buckeyes going because it was house money for Ryan Day last week. It's going to be the Commanders. It's not going to be a blowout, but it's going to be exerting their will if they can just continue the momentum they had in Detroit. This could be a well-deserved Super Bowl appearance for Dan Quinn and this entire Commanders team, especially, as I said, I've mentioned before on the show, everything that they've gone through with the ownership change and the fan, just not the folks in Washington and the Metro, with Dan Snyder and what he did to that team, and the fact that they've been kind of resurrected under the new ownership. What a story this would be. So I'm going to say, let's go 27-21 Commanders.
Okay.
Wow.
Adam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's not happening. I've said this the last 2 weeks. I've been saying it. It's the Lions and the Eagles that I said were going to be in the NFC Championship, and it was Bills Ravens for the AFC. Eagles, from a overall standpoint, team in all phases of the game, are the best balanced team in the NFL in the playoffs. Period. Kansas City's got a great defense. Their offense sucks. Bills got a somewhat okay offense. Their defense is meh. The Ravens with a great offense. Their secondary is shit. The Commanders have one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. They're still going. The Eagles fixed their problems with Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. And all it took was 2 players and continuing to build up that defense. The Eagles, I agree with you, Steve, showed nothing last week that inspired confidence on the offensive side of the ball.
This is what happens when you don't get AJ Brown the fucking ball.
But that's besides the point. Brown versus Lattimore is going to be a phenomenal matchup. You're going to have Smith versus Sanderstill. But who is the running back that almost broke Eric Dickerson's single-season rushing yard record going against one of the worst rush defenses in the NFL?
Saquon Barkley.
That is correct. Saquon effing Barkley, who should rush for 200 plus yards against this Commanders defense. Lions, take notes what you should have done with Gibbs and Montgomery last week. The Eagles will not make that mistake.
Preach it.
Eagles are going to run through the Commanders. Excuse me. Saquon Barkley's going to run through the Commanders. The rest of the Eagles offense is going to watch. The Eagles are going to win 28-17. I can see 21, but I do think it's going to be a really fun game. But the Eagles are going to get to the Super Bowl this year.
In reality,
Okay.
I think that the Eagles are going to win this game, not by much. I think it'll be a 21-17, 24-21 type of game. But however, if you were to say, hey man, could I see the Commanders winning by as much as a touchdown? I could see that because of how well they've been playing and how efficient that Washington offense has been lately. Here's the one thing I also know is that Jalen Hurts is been limited in practice this week. Remember, he got banged up quite a bit. Kind of had that knee issue at the end of the last game. He was a statue, ended up taking a safety late in the game against the Rams, almost let them come back. So I think if Jalen Hurts is healthy enough, I think it all revolves around Saquon and Jalen Hurts. Saquon can have a game, but if you can't have Jalen Hurts be at least a little bit mobile and be able to get some scramble for some first downs, make some kind of chicken salad out of chicken shit plays, I think the Eagles will take it. But Commanders, and I'm rooting for them. That's for sure.
Yeah, and before we move on to the AFC Championship game, that was, you brought up a good point, Brad, that I wanted to mention. If Washington can contain, I'm not going to say shut down because no one's been able to shut down Saquon Barkley yet this year, but if they can contain him, is anyone afraid of Jalen Hurts right now? I'm not. I mean, he didn't really blow me away in the Packer game. He didn't really blow me away last week. And even though, like, I know Brad said he did get beat up, he's been limited in practice. Even before that, though, he didn't, like, there were numerous quote unquote experts who were talking about how average he looked against the Packers. And I get it. That's it, his first game back after he'd been out for a month with the concussion and everything. Nobody, I think, expected him to be perfect, but I kind of feel like that if Washington can hold Saquon to 120 yards, you got a pretty, and I know, Adam, you're laughing because that's not easy. I say that as if that's easy to do. It's not.
I think that's more than enough to get the job done.
But if they can, I don't really see Philly's defense necessarily slowing down Washington the way they're playing right now. So I'll say, I'll give my prediction, and then if anyone wants to chime in about that and Jalen Hurts, go ahead. I'm going to say Washington 24-20. So any thoughts on Jalen Hurts and what you think he's looked like so far this preseason or postseason?
As one of the leading Jalen Hurts truthers ever since he was with Alabama, then he went to Oklahoma. People didn't think he was good enough to be drafted in the NFL, not good enough to be an NFL quarterback. As one of the guys who has led this freaking bandwagon. Get on board. Yeah, Jalen Hurts is wrong. I think we're going to find when the season's over is an injury we didn't know about that he's played through that has really hampered him. How much he may have been cleared from concussion protocol. How much has that truly affected him? I think we're going to find this phantom injury that he played through this injury. We didn't list it on the report because he's been playing through. Yeah, you didn't put it on the report because he's played through it. It hasn't bothered him. It's bothered him enough that it's affecting his play. This is not the same Jalen Hurts that he's been in the NFL ever since playing as elite as he has been. This is a watered-down version of Jalen Hurts.
Well, yeah, and I want to make it clear. This isn't like an indictment against his whole career. I'm just saying right now he's not, and it could be a phantom injury or something that he's hampered by right now. I get that, but I haven't been blown away by him the last couple of weeks at all.
Agreed.
Agreed. And when Brad, Steve, you got thoughts? Otherwise, we'll move on.
I just want to say really quick, Saquon stats in the two Commanders' previous matchups: November 14th, 26 for 146, 2 touchdowns. The other game at Washington in December, 29 for 150 and 2 touchdowns. So we got
Now,
a
was
common
that game
stat.
was that game in Washington the one that Washington won?
Yes.
I believe was that the game also that Jalen got hurt or not?
Trying to remember which one he got hurt.
I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was that one because
Yeah.
I remember Eagles fans saying, "Oh, hey,
Yep,
you beat us," and we had Mitch Trubisky, and it was like, well, I didn't think.
Yeah,
Jalen Hurts
Kenny
was doing-
Pickett in, not Mr.
Kenny
Trubisky.
Pickett, who also
Kenny,
played really
thank
well.
you very much, Kenny Pickett, and then he got a concussion.
Yeah.
But no,
look at the Steelers fan taking credit for Kenny Pickett over here.
No, but I
Okay.
just wanted to point out the stats that he has had a common right around 150 play in the Commander this year.
Okay. All right. So
Nice.
let's go to the NFC or AFC Championship game. That is the late game. Buffalo at Kansas City. Chiefs favored by 1.5. I don't. Adam, do you have the over and under? Oh, you said 47.5 for both.
It's
47.5.
47.5 over under for both games. The line though is drastically different. The spread right now, the Chiefs. I'm gonna go with -2. There are some spots that have it at -1.5.
Yeah,
But
I had
they're
1.5.
not giving the Bills the credit that they deserve.
Yeah, Brad, why don't you start us out with this one? What are your thoughts on this game?
Oh man, I just hope and pray and gotta believe that we will receive a holy gift this year, which is a Buffalo Bills Super Bowl. And I believe the Bills can do it defensively. I think they can shut Kansas City down. If Buffalo can put a good run game going, and James Cook is the man in order to be able to, he gets tough yards. He's not he's a between the tackles guy. He's gonna rumble and get some yards after the contact and maybe wear them down. But I think Buffalo, if any team's gonna do it, I think Buffalo can do it. So go Bills.
Okay, Adam, what are your thoughts?
Oh, save me for last.
Oh, okay, Steve, go ahead.
Save me for last.
It's going to be once again. Let's see. I mean, the Bills. I mean, I'm a DeMar Hamlin homer because he played for Pitt, but my goodness, the number of times he got mentioned last week on the broadcast for Johnny on the spot, that fumble that he punched out. Like, if we get pressure like that from Buffalo against the Kansas City offense, they got to give Mahomes fits. It's tough to do. It's very tough to do, but they've got to find a way to throw Mahomes off his element. And I'm hoping that Buffalo has something in their tricks that they've saved and said, if we make it to the championship game or the Super Bowl or wherever, and we've got to beat a team like Kansas City, here's a couple defensive schemes and packages. We're going to just keep them and pull them out at the last second so the other team has no clue what they're looking at. Buffalo must win this game, even if the guys in stripes, Cleet Blakeman is the referee. I just looked it up. I don't have Cleet's stats for Kansas City, but because that's, of course, he lives in Omaha, Nebraska. I don't think that makes a difference, but oh no, I'm sorry. I follow officials very closely, guys.
I know.
But no, it's just last week Kansas City got help where they needed to get help, both from their team and from other people. Buffalo just has to take that element away, and just Kansas City has to be neutralized. The fans have to be neutralized. They just have to go out, play their game, win, go to the Super Bowl. So let's see Buffalo win. It's going to be a close game too. I mean, we're going to be, I think, right around that 31-24, something like. I mean, it's going to be a shootout between Allen and Mahomes and everybody else on both those teams. Let's see what happens.
Okay, Adam, how about you?
We're going to do this my way. Give me my damn camera. Listen, you fraudulent referee, Kansas City Chiefs. You have been strung along the entire year by your friends, the referees. I'm going to continue with the joke bit. Your offense has looked pathetic. Mahomes has looked like a human. You have been carried by your elite defense. Josh Allen is going to out Mahomes, and the Bills are going to go on to win their first ever Super Bowl. Get wrecked.
Hey, all of America hopes you're right, Adam. I think.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah. Don't hold back.
All right. So let me throw you the stat.
Too contained, Adam. You gotta.
All right. So here's our stat. Cleat Blakeman. Mahomes at 6-5. He is not a KC homer.
Okay. Nice. All right.
So
in all seriousness, this is going to be a 21-17 victory for the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen has been playing
That's a good number.
on the Mahomes level. I do not think this is a
I would take I would totally take the under.
Yeah. I mean, my initial gut was 17-14. Because I do think we have an elite defense with the Kansas City Chiefs, but their offense has been pathetic. You have no idea how to use Marquise Brown. You have no idea how to use DeAndre Hopkins. The same way the Bills have no freaking idea how to use Amari Cooper. Okay, you've got legendary wide receivers in here. Current elite legendary wide receivers in Cooper and Hopkins, who are probably going to do absolutely nothing in this game other than be on the sidelines just smiling and waving like the Penguins of Madagascar. Just smile and wave, boys. Just smile and wave, wanting wind sprints up and down the damn field. These teams are going to have an absolute battle. This is the game of the weekend, but it's the Bills who are going to destroy the Chiefs. Allen is going to out Mahomes. And this is purely, I can continue the ref bit. We all know it's a joke. As Brad over here is praying for the Chiefs to lose. Stop with this logo bullshit. The fact that you had to freaking make up a Taylor Swift purple last year to keep your logo bullshit going, and enough's enough. The Eagles are the most balanced team. Kansas City has an offense that they have no idea what to do with, but a massively elite defense and an elite run game. Brad, you said James Cook is going to need tough yards. That is exactly what they're going to need from him if the Bills have any damn chance of winning this game. They're going to get it done with their wide receivers, but Cook is going to be extremely instrumental. 2 to 3 tough yards is all Josh Allen's going to need on first or second down to get his people the ball.
Yeah, when you talked about the referees too, I just got to say this, and I'm taking Buffalo 24-21. But when you were talking about the referees, it impressed me last week watching the game, the Chiefs game, when Troy Aikman got so fed up at one of those roughing the passer calls, and he was like, "Oh, come on!" Like, you rarely hear the announcers say anything bad.
Yeah, especially guys like, because Troy Aikman, I think he's a decent NFL commentator. I really do. I think he's one of the better colored commentators. And I'm not a fan of Buck, but I like Troy Aikman, and I don't know. I think he was hitting the nail on the head and exactly what people are saying. It's like, dude, just
We know Mahomes is the face of the NFL. Enough.
Yeah.
And I'll say this: Mahomes has perfected the flop as well as LeBron. Yep. I mean,
I was just gonna say LeBron.
Yeah, he's like the NFL's version of LeBron with that damn flop. So, and even I think Aikman pointed out how he'll kind of, when he scrambles and he kind of slows down as he gets over to the sidelines, like he's trying to, bait the defender into giving him a little hit so that he can like just flop on the, out of bounds and all that crap. So that annoys the hell out of me. All right. So we given our predictions. Brad, we'll hit on real quick on the college football championship game, talk a little bit about the Hall of Fame for baseball, and then we'll wrap things up here. So Brad, since I feel like you're probably the biggest Irish fan in the group here, not named Brandon Combs. I know Combsy is a big Irish fan. What were your thoughts on the? I mean,
it was a disappointing night.
Yeah.
Especially the first, I'd say 2.5 quarters. It was wild to see how truly, truly elite defense, and how well ND played defense down the last 2 months of the season. There were teams couldn't do a dang thing against them, specifically running the ball. And Ohio State, it was that night where you cannot, as an elite defense like that, allow 4 touchdowns on your first 4 drives. That's the win. That talk about textbook definition of wind out of your sails. So I think it overall it was a very successful season. You have to, you cannot, just for your own personal biases or for whatever other reason you may concoct, everybody has to say that was a successful season for a few reasons. That they are back in the national spotlight and legitimate, and I say legitimate as a very underlined and stressed word, contender. A lot of people didn't think they stood a chance versus Georgia or Penn State or anything like that, and they beat them and again in Georgia handily. So I think for those reasons, it's nice to see Notre Dame football back on the map again, been the prime time. I also think that as much as people are clamoring for ND to be part of a conference, that being independent is going to help pay off a lot of NIL bills moving forward. And I think that's going to allow I think that a lot of modern day student athletes have a higher intelligence level compared to former athletes in the past. I believe that, just being in a high school setting, that just in general, they're smarter when they leave school. So I think that, ND, they have a standard that they have to meet, and that's different than a lot of public institutions. They don't budge on that standard. But I also think that there are going to be more players who are maybe on that fringe that are eligible, that are going to begin to consider Notre Dame as an elite place to go, solely because of the job Marcus Freeman has done. It's been amazing.
Yeah. In fact, I was just going to ask you, you beat me at the punch there about the whole idea of them being in the conference. Cause I guess
don't want them.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't
we'll be satisfied being the 5 through 12 seed every year.
Well, yeah, if we can get you the championship game, why not? Steve, did you get a chance to watch the game?
I listened to it. I did not have a chance to watch it, but you felt, just as I said last week, Notre Dame just clamped down on Penn State, and it was just, I expected that. I thought that was going to be I thought it's like, hey, Notre Dame beat one Big Ten school. Let's see them just put down the hammer and just throw the knockout punch. But Ryan Day, all credit to Ryan Day. As I said in our chat, like, the guy is a national champion, but has, I think, once has beaten the team up north. So, like, what's a more, if you're an Ohio State fan, what's more exciting for you? Ryan Day, national champion, or Ryan Day figuring out how to beat Michigan? But the whole thing about Notre Dame, and Notre Dame, that's the thing about the CFP as it stands right now. The winner of the game does not get an additional payout if you make it to the final, because they got $4 million for the CFP qualifier, $4 million for the quarterfinals, $6 million for the semifinals, and $6 million for the national championship game, all to themselves.
Yeah.
The other, the Big Ten has to split their pot 18 ways, and each school gets about $2 million. So, but the big thing, I think they mentioned it, and I could be completely wrong, but I was just looking at an article the other day. Big Ten, because there's a conference, they do get some sort of guaranteed, because they have a guaranteed spot. Notre Dame has to play their way in if they are a team that fits into the rankings. That's not a guarantee that they're going to get a share of the CFP for a year. So, they could be in this year, and if they have a bad season next year, then they don't get any money.
Adam, did you get a chance to watch the game at all or not?
I had it on in the background. There wasn't anything super crazy about it. Like I said, Ohio State would win last week. I saw bits and pieces, but again, One thing I would like college to fix is put the players' names on the backs of the jerseys, please, so I have a clue of who the heck I'm looking at. But if from what I saw, it was a pretty close game. Ohio State just had the better firepower. And Brad, as a Notre Dame fan, who is this? Do you have a wide receiver with like an interesting last name that I've seen in highlights from both the Penn State game and this game?
You talking about like White House or?
No, that might be it. There's someone else on some wide receiver caught a touchdown pass for you guys in that game, or a big catch, and
Great House.
Great House. Thank you.
Yeah,
that's it.
Great House.
He's an interesting. What year is he? Freshman?
I think let's see. He is a sophomore.
Okay. He's an interesting wide receiver prospect because he had two really nice, again, catches in both the Penn State game and that Ohio State game that were highlight worthy, which was really interesting. So the Irish are they're on the upswing. They ran into the Ohio State offense. I'm still sticking by. I think Ryan Day gets fired even though he won a national championship. I'm still sticking by that championship from last week.
I will say this as somebody who proclaimed rather stupidly that I was not going to watch the game. I did end up watching it. I mean, it was on kind of like Adam said, it was kind of in the background, especially when it was, when Ohio State was up by about 3 touchdowns or whatever it was, and then they started coming back, and I found myself, rooting for Notre Dame, who I've always hated, and I actually really felt bad for the defensive back there when they were trying on the third down play that got burned for, I don't know, it was probably like a 40-yard gain or something like that when they,
to seal the deal on that final drive.
Exactly. It was like, I remember thinking if they could stop them here, they got a legit shot of coming down, at least scoring to possibly tie it with a 2-point conversion. And then when he completed that pass, I was like, okay, if that's over, that was really anticlimactic. So I was kind of hoping for it to be won or lost on a 2-point conversion rather than a big 40-yard gain and whatever. But, yeah, I'm pissed off at both teams for making me choose between one of those two, but no, I won't say that. But all right, so let's go on to we'll finish on the we were going to talk a little bit about NHL and that kind of thing, but we have a couple guys. I know Charles really wants to talk about NHL. He's been like dying to talk about it, and TJ. So we'll maybe talk about that next week when we don't have an NFL game to preview, because that'll be the off week for the NFL playoffs. So let's finish up here with Major League Baseball announce their Hall of Famers. To me, the Baseball Hall of Fame is still probably the best, and you guys can give your opinions on this. I feel like it's the only one, and I don't know much about the NHL if they're for the Hockey Hall of Fame, but arena, yes, TJ wants to talk hockey and arena football. We'll talk about that next week, buddy. So but I feel baseball's the one where they do their vote, and if they have one person that gets the right amount of votes, they have one person that goes in. If they have 3, they put 3 in. If they have none, then they just don't have any. I mean, I think that happened a few years ago where they had no one that got 80% of the vote or whatever was needed. Or is it 80 or 70%? I can't remember, but which I still think is fantastic. I know a lot of baseball purists will still say that there's a lot of guys in there they don't think should be in there, but we have Ichiro this year, CC Sabathia, and then Billy Wagner. What are your thoughts on? And actually, I'll throw this out there. Do any of you guys have a problem with some of these baseball writers who have certain standards that to me are really stupid? We talked about Ichiro had one person that did not vote for him.
Yeah, how is Ichiro not the second most unanimous player like they got in the Baseball Hall of Fame? How?
Yep. First year on the ballot, and he should have gotten all 394 votes. And some idiot said, no, not going to vote for him.
Yep. And it's usually some old guy who's like Babe Ruth should be the only one to ever have a unanimous first ballot Hall of Fame. As my question is, if they're not good enough to make it this year, what's so special about next year that you would vote for him in? Brad, you seem like you have something to say here. Go ahead.
I think okay, I 100% agree. Well, okay, I don't say 100%. I 99.4% agree because I think that you have to take into account the caliber of player that does go into the Hall of Fame, and I think that not only as an individual player, but think of how many team championships he was a part of.
Yeah,
I mean, none, one. And I think that for some voters maybe that carries some weight. That's about the only thing I can think of. I mean, when it comes to hitting, batting, efficiency, stolen bases, I mean, defensive acumen. I mean, this guy's been a shoe-in Hall of Famer 5 years into his MLB career, and Steve, it's pretty cool to see him get in.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Steve, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm happy for this class. I'm really happy for the Cobra Dave Parker being elected. Previously, I think it's the veterans or whatever, that other committee that elects a well-deserved honor, a great player for the Pirates and the Reds, someone that my dad and a lot of other baseball fans who remember the really good days of the Pirates speak very highly of. A couple thoughts about the voting. One is that you can vote for up to 10. So one of the thoughts is that this person just assumed that Ichiro is going to make it and said, I'm going to spend my 10 votes on other players and maybe be the deciding vote to push someone else over the threshold to get in, rather than be like. And then the big one, there's only been one guy unanimously voted into the Baseball Hall of Fame to this point.
Yep.
Mariano Rivera.
Should be Ichiro.
Yep. But not Babe, not Gehrig, not any of these guys. It was Mariano Rivera. But three well-deserving players to make it to the Hall of Fame. Ichiro, it just, my goodness. A player that really the world came to baseball with Ichiro. I mean, you go watch those old Seattle Mariners games and half the advertisements would be in Japanese because they'd be beaming the games across to Japan. And it's just like, what a player. And didn't get to see him as much as I wish I could have because he played in the American League. But, man, the times that I did get to see him, and also being a West Coast team, most of the game started after I went to bed when I was younger, but what a player, what a well-deserved honor.
Yep.
Absolutely. All right. So why don't we wrap things up with our 4 minutes on high? Does anyone have any thoughts? Steve, you usually have something that you want to.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. You want to get started? Okay.
Yeah, let's pull one out that I think is a real fun adventure of the day today. So the NFL fined Joe Mixon for a comment that TJ Houshmandzadeh actually made. Basically, why play the game if every 50-50 call goes to the Chiefs? The officials are blank, trash, and bias. And basically, the attribution went to Mixon originally. Well, they found something he actually said. So they fined him, and the comment was, everyone knows how it is playing up here. You can never leave it in the ref's hands. The whole world sees, man, what it is. When it comes down to it, you can never leave it in the ref's hands. It's all good, though. So either way, he's $25,000 lighter in the pocket thanks to his comment. First one not being his. Then they found one that actually was his. So alrighty there. And the other thing too, I'm looking here in my my news feed for the day, and someone's coming back. I just saw someone who said Khalil Mack will be returning in 2025. So, yep. And they also let the Jaguars GM go this afternoon. I don't know if we caught that. Trent Baalke is out.
Yep.
Balky
Really?
is
I did
out
not see that.
in Jacksonville. So a little diversion at the end of 4 minutes on high, but keep up the good work, Joe. And let's see, hopefully with the official that's been assigned, Clay Martin, there's not going to be as many after post-match comments this weekend.
Sounds good. Adam, you got something you want to get off your chest?
Yeah, you've already heard part of my 4 minutes on high already about the Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. But no, I'll say this about the Baseball Hall of Fame. It is illegitimate without Bonds and the steroid guys. Period. It is an illegitimate Hall of Fame without them. Because you think you're high and mightier because they use freaking steroids. We were having this discussion in our Dads Are Bacon Facebook page chat, group chat for the show. Bonds is one of the greatest baseball players of all time, and he is not in the Hall of Fame. McGuire, Sosa, you cannot deny what those two did for the decade that they were there. I wasn't a sports fan, and I heard the battles back and forth between these two. That's how much of an impact it got to. You need to get the steroid guys in the Hall of Fame. Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. Period.
Yeah.
Also, since it's post-inauguration day here for the next, this week, here's the deal. No matter who sits in that presidential chair, does not affect how you treat your fellow humans. Love one another.
Amen.
I would agree with that. All right. And let's see. I got to bring up back mine. Brad, your turn. You have anything you want to talk about, or are you good for the night?
Yeah, I'll just make mine quick. Ben or Adam, I think I was a true sentiment, man. I think that there's more similarities between people and more things in common and more goals that we want to accomplish rather than not to see us have accomplished. And I think that we as a society need to have just open and honest conversations and learn to have respectful dialogue again and understand that we may not always agree, but we are going to take care of one another. And so yeah, I agree.
Awesome. All right. I'll come on up here, and some of you may see the picture behind me here. I don't know if I can get out of the way here.
The legend.
The legend.
That's right. Last week after our show, I think was it Thursday or Friday that probably the greatest living broadcaster still remaining of all the greats, whether you're talking about Vin Scully or Ernie Harwell or Jack Buck and all those different guys. Bob Uecker, I believe, was probably and maybe some people would put him above all the ones I just mentioned. I don't know. I guess it depends on what your tastes are. Obviously, as a Brewer fan, but even I know when we brought it up in the group chat, I think Ben was the first one to post that he had passed, and even Combsy, who's a diehard Brewers hater and a big Cubs fan, said he absolutely loved listening to Bob Uecker. And I'll say this: I knew the guy was 90 years old. I knew he wasn't in the greatest health. I mean, over the last few years, he had kind of cut back, wasn't doing any road games anymore, was staying, just home, and wasn't even doing all the home games, that kind of thing. But it's still, I said to my wife, I don't understand why I'm so down, because I never met the guy. I didn't know him personally, but it was just, it was a shock when he died, and even though he was 90 years old, it felt like this was a guy who, and I posted it on my personal Facebook profile, I fell in love with baseball listening to Bob Uecker, and the years that I listened to him growing up, there were quite a few pretty bad years. I mean, when they went to the World Series in '82, I was only 6. So, I mean, I wasn't really, a huge baseball fan yet, as much as I was pretty much just a Packer fan back then, but I liked baseball. I liked the Brewers, but I didn't really, I didn't start listening to them until the team sucked. And this guy made that a lot easier, to listen to. I mean, and some of his stories, my wife and I that night and over the weekend were on YouTube watching, and she remembers, it made her cry because she grew up listening to Bob Uecker with her grandma, who she was super close to. And, they'd sit there, and her grandma loved listening to Uecker. They'd get ice cream. They'd sit in her bedroom, her grandma's bedroom, and have the Brewer game on the radio and listen to Uecker. And, this guy was a connection to so many people's memories of growing up. I heard somebody say he was the voice of our summers for over 50 years for the Brewers. And that really is a perfect way to say it. So rest in peace, Bob. You will be missed. It'll be interesting to see, what tributes to Brewer. I'm sure they'll have plenty of them all throughout the year.
Only one goddamn hit.
It's a goddamn on the radio.
Just a bit outside.
Yeah, I mean, what a great guy. Anyway, so thank you, Bob, for all the years that you made listening to Brewers baseball more enjoyable than it probably should have been, considering how bad the team was. So anyway, that's it for the show this week, guys. So we will see everyone next week. Next Wednesday, we'll be talking some post championship game football talk, along with some, I promise we'll touch on the NHL. For our few basketball fans, we'll talk about the NBA, even though there's not a lot of you that care. But NHL, NFL talk, probably a little more baseball talk too. And everyone have a great weekend, and we'll see you guys all next week. Take care.
Have a good one, guys.
Hey, those people.